First of all, congratulations for making it to 2021. We survived 2020. I cannot start this video without acknowledging this and the magnificent accomplishment that is making it to this year. So let's just start in that place. But before I launch into my reading for the energies of 2021, I have to talk about 2020 because this was the starting place. 2020, this past year, was both the conclusion of a cycle and the beginning of a new one. It was the pinnacle of a way of being that could go no further. So we saw this on a global scale, but also on a personal scale. There was a way in which you were operating, thinking, being, running your life that reached its apex and could no longer be sustained, could go no further. So while the world went through this cycle of one era ending and a new one beginning, you went through that personally as well. And I know that I for sure did. Now, last year when I did the reading for 2020, the image that I got for the year was the quartz-tipped arrow. And one of the things I talked about in that video was this idea that density was coming in 2020 to help us get really clear on how we wanted to feel in our lives and what was really important. Now, of course, I, like everybody else, had no idea what was actually coming in 2020, but that panned out and turned out to be very accurate for what I experienced and what I know a lot of other people experience as well. That the hardship and density of 2020 really highlighted for us what was important and also really made stand out in stark relief how we wanted to feel. Sometimes we need the opposite to experience the opposite of a feeling to understand what it is we really want to feed in our lives. And one of the things I talked about in that video last year was that we can choose on a day-to-day basis to do things that call in that feeling. And that feeling itself is what's really motivating us. It's what's driving us forward. And that feeling is the seed for the new projects, the new prospects, and the new eras to come. So we all got a powerful lesson this year on really learning how to focus and refine how it is we want to feel in our lives. So this quartz-tipped arrow, secretly when I saw that image, I was hoping that it meant that we'd accomplish all the goals, that I'd get done all the things I wanted to do that year. But really, it was a bit more like Cupid's arrow, and that arrow was actually pointing inwards to this inwards journey. Now, why is this important that we talk about 2020 before we talk about 2021? Well, for me, the image that I got for 2021 is intimately related to the image for 2020. So, here's the reading for 2021. The new core. So before I go into the specifics of what this metaphor has meant for me as I've been exploring it in these weeks leading up to the new year, I have to talk a little bit about lithics and something I've been really interested in this past year. So lithics is a focus in archaeology that looks at stones. The further back in history we go, the remaining evidence normally becomes lithics, right? Because things like plant matter and animal matter don't last as long as stone. So when we look to the ancient past, when we're studying the deep ancestors, what we have to look to are stones. So that's what's called lithics in archaeology. So in lithics, when we're looking at the technology of Paleolithic peoples, who I call the deep ancestors, and who I call upon as my deep ancestors, and who I've spent a lot of time consulting with this year and really feeling into, when we look at the lithic technology, what we're often looking at are two things, the cores and the flakes. So when we make points out of stone, what we're looking for is a good core. And this core is what then we flake off the smaller tips from, and when we become even more economical, learn how to even use that core itself, what's left after everything that's been flaked away, as a tool as well. And so the definition online for a core, I found this on Wikimedia, is the scarred nucleus resulting from the detachment of flakes there was something about that term, the scarred nucleus, that I was like, okay, if anything described how I feel after being bashed around by 2020, it's that. But what's really powerful about these cores when we look at archaeology and we study them is that it tells us so much about who the people were, what they went through, what they needed to do to survive, and the technologies that they ingeniously developed to keep going. So in archaeology, when we look at the deep past, it's these lithics that define new cultural eras, new strata in the layers of history. So when we see a change in how these cores and flakes were made, then we know what we're looking at is either a new culture or a total revolution in the current culture, so much so that a new culture is named. So why is this important for 2020, that this year that I've deemed the new core? Well, we are embarking upon an era of new technology. And we hear this in astrology when we talk about entering the age of Aquarius, but the reality is our inner technology is so much more potent than the outer technology. This past year in 2020, you learned some very potent tools and technologies for yourself and your personal development. I promise you, if you look back on this year, you're going to realize that there was certain things that you focused on, that you learned, that you really honed in terms of taking care of yourself, connecting to your higher knowing, developing and building more resilience, that it's these technologies that are most transformational. As humans, we tend to look to these outer technologies as the thing that's going to really save us or help us evolve, but it's the inner technologies that are most transformational. So in general, when our outer environment changes, it forces us to develop new tools and new technologies. We see this when we look at the deep past, when there was interglacial periods, times of great climatic change, the technologies changed. So as humans going through 2020, we have had to have our inner technologies of how we work with really the technology of our own energy and spirit and being. We've been forced to work on those technologies and renovate them and reinvigorate them and find even new ways of being and understanding ourselves. So in this way of thinking, the lithics of what we thought was possible is changing. What we thought was set in stone, perhaps about who we are or how the world worked, it has now been sort of thrown up in the air, but in a positive way, ultimately, because we're entering a new age. So just like we would look back in the archaeological records and see a change in these core and flake technologies, by looking at the cores, we are going to look back on this time in our lives as a turning point. This will be a marker of a new cultural era for us personally in our lives, a new era of growth and development and evolution, and this is the turning point. So you might be surprised by yourself this year, and I want you to just allow some space for you to be surprised by all the things that you've learned, the ways you've learned how to let go, the loops of thinking or fear or feeling that you've transcended. So I think that this will be a major theme for you in 2021 and for all of us, that because of the technologies and the tools that we've learned of how to really work with our spirit, ourselves, our mental health, our energy, because of that, we're going to surprise ourselves with how much we've evolved. This is really, though, a bridge year. So to give yourself the time and space this year to become fluent in this new technology, whatever this is that you've learned about how to really work with your energy, your mental space, and your spirit. So we are becoming fluent in this year, and we're going to have more time to practice because the pandemic is not over. And though there's a light at the end of the tunnel for sure, we are going to have more time to practice these skills that we had to learn in 2020, and that's a good thing because these skills are going to be essential for us in the years to come, which I have a feeling are going to be um, pretty big and pretty magnificent, both on a personal level and on a global level. So you might notice as you go into this year that the maze of your mind doesn't feel as complex as it used to. Or you might just be surprised by the fact that you now know how to navigate a labyrinth that before seemed impossible. So if anything, 2021 is going to be teaching us that these technologies that we learned are here to help us make quantum leaps, right? In our thinking, in our lives, and in the world at large. So you might want to ask yourself some questions as we go into this new year. What are the tools or technologies for you? What are the things you learned about how to work with your own energy, your mindset, how to change your inner reality and work with your inner reality despite what's going on in the outer world? What are some major lessons that you learned that could be considered tools or technologies that are really going to help see you into 2021 and that you are here to become a master in? 2021 is definitely going to help us master these tools that we have now garnered. And when you are having moments where you're feeling like it's just too much, because we've all had those moments in 2020 and those moments will come up again in 2021, call upon the deep ancestors. Call upon those of the ancient past, perhaps your Paleolithic ancestors, those who survived wave after wave of enormous change, cataclysmic change. Humanity has been through many times of a bottleneck in our population where we almost ceased to exist, and then we bounced back. We developed new ways of being, new technologies. So call upon those deep ancestors. Ask them to come support you. They know how to survive. They know how to thrive, and their resilience lives within you. 2020 has proven that, right? Their ingeniousness lives within you as well. And the last thing I want to say is that by working on and being with these tools that we've learned, these invaluable, precious gems that have come out of 2020, this is how we change the world. This is how we introduce more healing into our process as humanity. Because the thing about technology is, when it's helpful in the course of developing human consciousness and helping us to fulfill our mission here as humans on Earth, part of that mission, a large part of that mission being actually supporting the further growth and development of the Earth and the network of beings that we're a part of, when technologies are helpful in this way, they spread like wildfire. So even in the past, archaeologists are unsure how one technology was able to spread from one part of the world to another in a time where there was no global communication. And that's because these technologies are spreading along lines of consciousness. So the ways that you have learned to work with your energy and your heart and your consciousness and your connection to your personal divine, those things will spread like wildflower, I like that too, like wildflowers around the world, but they will spread. They are here to sort of ignite the network that you're a part of. So know that this personal work that you've been engaged in 2020 and that is taking you into 2021 is vastly important. So with that, I wish you many blessings in this coming year. It feels like an important building year, a step in a direction that is really going to open up a lot of light and possibility for us on the other side with these new tools in our pocket. And just like our ancestors used to migrate or travel with these new cores that they found, please know that the core of you, though it might feel as if it's been a bit banged up this year, the core of you is more solid than ever, and it is traveling with you as you enter into this new era. So may your New Year's be blessed, and I look forward to continuing to walk through this journey with you.